Sergio Perez held off Charles Leclerc to win a chaotic Singapore Grand Prix as Max Verstappen was forced to wait to seal the World Championship after finishing 7th. Red Bull's Perez had to wait 2.5 hours for victory to be confirmed as stewards investigated him for leaving too much distance between himself and the safety car on 2 separate occasions during the race, which also saw three VSC deployments. The FIA ultimately decided to penalise Perez with a 5-second penalty, which meant he kept the second win of the season, having finished 7.5 seconds clear of Leclerc. Perez passed pole sitter Leclerc off the line at the start and withdrew heavy pressure from him through large portions of the gruelling contest at Marina Bay Street Circuit, with the race ending at the 2-hour time limit as the multiple interruptions ensured that 61 full laps couldn't be completed. The last 3 laps were so intense. He said, "When I got out of the car, I felt everything. I gave it all today." He said, "It was certainly my best performance. I controlled the race." Singapore's stunning night race, which was being held for the first time in 3 years after the coronavirus pandemic, saw previous day editions cancelled and only finished shortly after 11 p.m. local time after a torrential downpour, delayed by the start of over an hour, with the drivers starting on intermediate tyres before switching to slicks midway through in tricky conditions. Verstappen, who needed to win the race from 8th on the grid to have any chance of claiming his second successive title, looked to be coming into contention for a podium place before making an error that flat-spotted his tyres and forced him to the pit. The Dutchman's World Championship lead was reduced to 104 points, with Leclerc staying 2 points ahead of Perez in second, but Verstappen will have a more realistic chance of closing out a dominant campaign in Japan next week. Carlos Sainz finished third for Ferrari despite lacking pace throughout the race, while McLaren struck a huge blow in the battle for fourth in the Constructors' Championship as Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo finished 4th and 5th respectively after both Alpine's cars failed with reliability issues. Lewis Hamilton enjoyed a torrid afternoon, finishing ninth after losing the third place fight to Sainz at the start before being fortunate to continue, having driven into the barrier at turn 7 as he attempted to overtake Spaniard. It was a strong afternoon for Aston Martin, with Lance Stroll 6th and teammate Sebastian Vettel 8th, while Pierre Gasly rounded out the points with just 14 cars finishing the race, 6 retirements on the whole. So yeah, as you can tell, it was quite a chaotic race with lots going on really. But anyway, all the talk coming into F1's return to Singapore was about whether Verstappen would pull off the unlikely feat of sealing the title, with the Dutchman having arrived in imperious form after 5 successive victories. However, after a Red Bull mishap in qualifying saw Verstappen left to start down in 8th, the team's hopes of victory on a track where overtaking is notoriously hard were left with Perez, who had surprised many by sticking it on the front row. After a strong start to the season, including a victory at Monaco, Perez has been touted as a title rival for Verstappen, but his form has fallen away in the second half of the campaign, with just one podium finish coming during his teammates' run of 5 wins in succession. As a result, even after Perez's strong qualifying performance, few are talking about him as a likely race winner, as buzz built for a sold-out race on Sunday. The 32-year-old made the best start possible as he got the jump on Leclerc at the start and led into the first corner, initially opening a gap. However, as the pair pulled away from Sainz, Leclerc began to close, and after a crash between Nicolas Latifi and Zhou Guanyu triggered the first safety car of the race, the Ferrari began to apply pressure. It was revealed after the race that during the first safety car period, Perez was reprimanded by the stewards for not staying within the required 10 car lengths. 3 virtual safety cars followed, one was triggered by Alex Albon crashing and the other 2 by Alpine failures, but the leaders opted not to pit, with worn intermediate tyres remaining their best option, with drying track not quite yet ready for slicks. Leclerc's last opportunity to pass was likely to come with the pit stops. And with the track finally drying off the slicks, Ferrari came in first, but immediately damaged his chances by overshooting his pit markings to cause a longer stop. This then meant that Perez pitted a lap later and came out comfortably ahead, but another safety car, this time triggered by Yuki Tsunoda, crashing, bunched up the field once more. It was at this point that Red Bull was once going through, was guilty of the same infringement, going through turn 9 and 10, with the race director this time issuing a direct warning to the Red Bull to be passed on to the driver. Despite the warning, Perez did the same thing in turn 13 and 14, which was the offence he was given a 5-second time penalty for. The issue was put on the back burner as the stewards announced it would be reviewed post-race, and on the slicks, Leclerc appeared to have the pace to get past Perez, applying huge pressure as DRS was enabled for the first time with just over 30 minutes of the race remaining. However, a wobble from the Ferrari driver allowed Perez out of DRS range, and he never relinquished his advantage before even showing additional pace to crucially extend his lead in the closing stages in anticipation of the penalty, before until victory was confirmed, Perez said, "I'm pretty confident there's nothing wrong with it. It was just a bit of a miscommunication with the safety car driver, Bernd Maylander. I think on the places where I could keep up with him, he was super slow, and the places where I could not keep up with him, he was fast. There's a bit of a miscommunication there. But I think these conditions are not normal, so it's fully understandable. The conditions were wrong. We were facing, especially in the final stretch, were super tricky. So I do expect no further action, as the stewards were pleased with my explanation, I hope they understood it," he said. It was a day that began with hope for Lewis Hamilton, who had seeking Mercedes' first victory of a disappointing season. Verstappen, who retained faint hopes of seeing the title, or at least extending his 5-race winning streak. However, losing a place to Sainz at the start proved to be a terminal blow to Hamilton's hopes. The Spaniard's lack of pace meant Hamilton was never given clean air to show that if he had the pace to rival the front two. Having trailed Sainz for most of the race, frustration got the better of Hamilton on lap 33 as he locked up, attempting to pressure Sainz, and went straight on into the barrier at turn 7. The 7-time champ was forced to sustain minimal damage to his front wing, and was able to even keep Verstappen behind him after rejoining the track in 5th. However, the incident coinciding with the point at which the track was becoming slick ready, Mercedes opted to pit Hamilton for a new wing as well as new tyres. Verstappen made an even worse start, dropping 4 places to 12th as he almost stalled getting off the grid and made minor contact with a Haas of Magnussen. However, he quickly recovered, but climbing to 7th before being held up by Alonso, whose timely retirement from Verstappen's perspective put the Dutchman up to 6th. Hamilton's mishap put both Verstappen and Norris ahead of him, a place further up, but at the restart from the final safety car, the Red Bull would make a mistake similar to his great rivals, attempting to steal a march on Norris. Verstappen flat spotted his tyres as he locked up and went down the escape road, and then needed the pit for fresh tyres. He would fight back once more, especially closing in on Hamilton, who was stuck behind 7th place Sebastian Vettel in the final stages. The 3 world champions formed a train in the closing stages. It was Hamilton who blinked, locking up once more as he went for an overtake on Vettel, allowing Verstappen through before the Dutchman also got past the Aston Martin on the final lap to end an eventful afternoon. "It was not where we want to be," Verstappen said. "Yesterday you put yourself in a spot like that, and it can even work brilliantly, and you can drive back to the front, or it's very frustrating that we had today. It's just incredibly messy." Hamilton's struggles were part of a hugely disappointing weekend in the whole for Mercedes, with Russell last classified finishes, having started from the pit lane, and then Gamble putting slick tyres before the track was ready for him. The dismal results saw Ferrari strengthen their grip on second in the constructors, establishing a 66-point lead over Mercedes to halt recent gains. I mean, you'd probably say end that battle. "I think we just started off with a pretty decent weekend and were really, really unfortunate at the end," Hamilton said. "It was difficult to overtake and then lock up into turn 7. When things happen, your heart sinks a bit. It all went out of the window when I locked out, so apologies to the team, but we live on learn and I'll recover." McLaren's hauled a 22 points from Norris and Ricciardo, who largely minded their own business and sensible drive, saw the British team leapfrog Alpine and take a 4-point lead in battle for 4th. Elsewhere, Nicholas Latifi was handed a 5-place grid penalty for next week in Japan for causing the crash, which knocked both him and Guan Yu Zhou out of the race. And before I go, let me run you through the classification for an eventful Singapore Grand Prix. It was Sergio Perez who came out on top. And yeah, great drive from Checo. I've been critical of it recently, but he really was at his best here. And yeah, just a brilliant drive from him. Leclerc second. I mean, I think at points he probably did have the pace to win that. Maybe we'll be frustrated he didn't at least stay in the 5-second margin. So yeah, maybe he'll be slightly disappointed. But still a decent drive for considering Sainz, who was third pretty much the whole race, but just seemed to have very minimal pace compared to him. Norris in 4th, Ricciardo in 5th. Obviously got a bit lucky because they were the last cars to pit, and then when the safety car came out, it obviously worked out brilliantly for them, but a huge day for them nonetheless. No, we liked that. Ricciardo as well, great comeback drive. Stroll as well, brilliant, 6th in the Aston Martin, great drive. Verstappen 7th, it's just been a scrappy weekend for him, hasn't it? Not a great drive from him today, and his high standards, you have to say. A few mistakes. I think he put Magnussen into the wall potentially on lap 1 as well, lock up and everything like that. Vettel in 8th, great drive from him as well. Not quite matching his job, but still solid points and a bit of a crap car to be honest. Hamilton 9th, just another kind of like Verstappen really, just another off day. Had that lock up. I think his pace was really solid. Shame he couldn't get to it in the first part of the race, but except for that, just not great from Hamilton today. Maybe just an off day. Very rare that we see it from him and Verstappen. Gasly 10th, a point for AlphaTauri, but they're down to 9th in the Constructors Championship now, and they've got a battle in their hands to get that places back. Bottas 11th, Alfa Romeo just didn't seem to have much pace today really. Shame for them because it's an opportunity for them to go gain some points there. Magnussen 12th and Schumacher 13th, kind of a similar story. They just didn't have the pace really, and it's a shame because they had an opportunity like the Alphas. Russell in 14th. yeah, just an off day for Russell. Quite a lot of bozo moments from him when you think of the Bottas incident, and the Schumacher one as well. Yeah, not a great day from Russell, it has to be said, or a great weekend on the whole. Tsunoda, once again, just having those crashes just seems quite unnecessary, really, doesn't it? And yeah, he needs to cut those out. And then you've got Ocon and Alonso, both the Alpines retiring, and you wonder how costly that could be for them come the end of the season in that battle for McLaren. I still think they've got a fast car, but they need to execute their weekends better. Albon retiring, Latifi as well. Latifi, I mean, I just don't know what he was doing. That was terrible driving, really. And gets a deserved penalty. Shame for Zhou, but he didn't seem to have a great start to the race and probably would have been in a similar position to Bottas. And then you've got Albon as well. It's a shame he couldn't come back in a better way, obviously with the terrible injury and everything like that. But did well to even be there. He probably haven't scored anything anyway, but in the grand schemes and things there, just great to see him there, really. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. Thanks very much for watching. To like, share, subscribe, don't forget to comment down below. Follow us. Thanks for watching for daily F1 news and subscribe to my channel. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.